Throughout the Legend of Zelda franchise, Link has always been the hero, and Zelda is mostly present in the name of the games instead of actually doing something. However, what would happen if Zelda was the playable hero for once? What would be her role and what kind of abilities would she have? Well, let's find out. Alright, before the official release of Breath of the Wild, a lot of people thought that Link would be a female for the first time ever. A big part of the fanbase absolutely hated this because all of a sudden Nintendo wanted to change a beloved main character. Personally, I don't like it as well. It would have a huge impact on the game because it brings a whole new set of personality traits and a whole lot of explaining to the game. So that would mess up either Link as a character or the timeline and how the hero's reincarnations work. However, lurking in the shadows was an idea that could easily work and would help the franchise with its growth in numerous ways. Now, back in the days of the Philips CDI, which was an interactive multimedia CD player developed and marketed by Royal Philips Electronics, who supported it from December 1991 into the late 1990s. On this console, media, TV thing, they released a Zelda game that was quite special. Zelda's Adventure. In this strange spin-off, Zelda serves as the main protagonist, which never really happened. And this was even supposed to be a serious Zelda game. Now, unlike the previous two CDI Zelda games, which are platforming side-scrollers similar to The Adventure of Link, this one incorporates a similar top-down view, reminiscent of most conventional 2D Zelda games. Now, this game was absolute trash, as most of you know. Just looking at the intro cutscene of this game shows the kind of quality you can expect. NANI?! So yeah, this wasn't the best example of what a Zelda-focused game could look like. But luckily enough, she was also seen in a ton of other games. Now, to find out what a Zelda-focused Nintendo game would look like, we will first have to look at the following things to see what the options are. Her character to see what kind of game would be fitting, her abilities and powers to know what she's capable of, and the story options we have. First up, what kind of game would be a good fit for a dear princess? Well, let's see what kind of person she really is. Normally she is depicted as a kind and benevolent ruler, with a wisdom beyond her years, and a deep love towards the people she watches over. She's a caring, graceful, and a self-sacrificing person, and her most prominent display of compassion and flawlessness was when she saved the life of Midna, who was about to die. Zelda's wisdom is for sure her most valuable attribute, and besides that, has an extremely good moral compass. Her whole character is already quite fitting for a hero, and the fact that she is very smart could add a whole puzzle aspect to her game. With her normal princess look and behavior, you could create some cool sections where you play as her in a normal Zelda game, or one based on puzzling or strategic thinking. But she isn't limited to this at all, because throughout the series we have seen her in a ton of different forms that would be cool to use in a standalone video game. For example, Sheik, which is her ninja warrior version, Tetra, who is a pirate captain with her own ship, and besides that, her more godly forms as the leader of the sages and goddess Hylia. Almost all these forms have been seen in multiple games. In Hyrule Warriors and Super Smash Bros, they even created specific movesets for them. All of this makes building a game around our beloved princess a lot easier, and almost any game type would be fitting. With Sheik you could pull off an Assassin's Creed style game, while Tetra would be perfect for a Sea of Thieves format. Clearly, Nintendo isn't very limited here. Now for her attacks. Here she yet again has a million options, and the different forms allow for a lot of variety and completely different types of characters when it comes to combat. Think of weapons like the Bow of Light, the rapier she uses in Twilight Princess, the baton which is originally from the royal family, which she uses in Hyrule Warriors, and her kick-ass moves as Sheik in Super Smash Bros. Here she yet again has a ton of options, which allows for a lot of different styles when it comes to the overall games and combat. And with the wide range of games where she uses these weapons and attacks, Nintendo can easily create something out of it. Now for our story options. What could we expect while keeping her origin and overall story throughout the series in mind? Well, overall, when she is seen in the Legend of Zelda games, she is the ruler of Hyrule Castle or being kidnapped. And besides that, she is seen in almost every game in the entire series, so when it comes to fitting in the timeline, there won't be any problems. However, throughout the series, there have been a couple of moments and time periods where a new game could be set. One that would tap into Zelda's alter ego Sheik is seen in Ocarina of Time. In the game, Ganondorf chases after Zelda, who had the Ocarina of Time in her possession, when Impa escaped with her from Hyrule Castle. For 7 years, Zelda remained in hiding, training in the ways of the Sheikah by Impa until Link, who had become trapped within the Sacred Realm, was freed. Appearing before him under the name Sheik, she assisted Link in awakening the remaining 5 sages, all the while keeping her real identity secret. However, those 7 years are a complete mystery to the player. We only get to see the end result when we enter Hyrule again. So why not create a game set in this time period, when Zelda went from an innocent little girl to a kick-ass ninja warrior? A game about this insane change and the dangerous events that went down in that time period while hiding from Ganon and his forces would be a great setting for a game based around Zelda. Besides that, fans of the franchise know about these events, and I bet a lot of you, yeah, you there, watching this video, would love to see this game. Another good time period where you could create an extremely cool game is before the events of the Wind Waker. Link is still a kid and lives on Outset Island, but Tetra was doing some other things, which could be an interesting setting. Her mother was the captain of a pirate crew, but by the time the events of the Wind Waker take place, she has already passed away. Before her departure, she entrusted Tetra with a piece of the Triforce of Wisdom and instructed her to guard it with her life. She follows in her mother's footsteps and becomes the new leader of the pirate crew, who all respect her despite her young age. The fact that her mother died and she was left all alone running the pirate ship would be a good amount of drama when it comes to the story and personal development. Besides that, they could focus heavily on the pirate life and create something out of that. Yet again, quite easy to pull off, and the fans would love it. This would also be a completely different game compared to the last example, so clearly Nintendo has a ton of options. Now for my final example of an amazing Zelda-focused game that could easily work. And this one is yet again a new kind of genre, even more so than the previous. In Twilight Princess, Zelda was the young ruler of Hyrule until its invasion by Zant, the Twilight King, to whom she surrendered in order to prevent the deaths of herself and her people. Afterwards, she is imprisoned inside a tower in Hyrule Castle. Now, Link was in Ordon Village and only got involved when the Twilight was on his doorstep and essentially took him. So why not create a game that's set in the period before it reached Ordon and their big fight between Zant and the Hyrulean forces? A strategy game where you have to manage troops and have to create a plan to defeat your enemy, similar to games like Age of Empires, StarCraft, and a ton of others. However, this time you lose in the end, because Zant wins no matter what. This could create an interesting dynamic. And when it comes to the gameplay, you could always mix in actual combat together with managing troops and resources. A bit like Hyrule Warriors, but this time you actually have to give commands and do other stuff besides running around and taking out enemies like it's nothing. There's even a Total War mod called Hyrule Total War, where you can play as nations from the Zelda franchise. So clearly, I'm not the only one who had this idea. It might not be very fitting for the classic Zelda formula, but as a spin-off, it could work. It would have a better chance than Halo's take on it called Halo Wars, which didn't do very well, also because it was a bit basic. So as you can see, Zelda could easily star in her own game, and this time for real, because the CDI games were a complete joke. Throughout time, there have been multiple instances where she went through some interesting scenarios that have never been explored. Personally, I think a game based around the Sheikah persona in that 7-year gap seen in Ocarina of Time would be the best pick. While I would love to see them try something like this instead of Link's crossbow training or Tingle's Rosy Rupee Land, you never really know when it comes to Nintendo. Let's just hope it will appear on our screens during a direct one day. Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed. If you want to watch more videos, then click those lovely annotations and be sure to subscribe. And go to my other social media. I stream on Twitch. Go there now. What are you doing here, you foul human? No, I love you. Please go there. Thank you.